Welcome to our podcast, episode 3. We now have a name. Drum roll, please. We are calling it Raising Bigs. And the reason why we're calling it Raising Bigs is because when my 3 children were little, I always called them the littles when talking about them. And then as they aged out, sometimes I would talk about Sawyer, my oldest, and I'd call him the big and call the other 2 the littles. And now they're all bigs. So that's why we're calling it Raising Bigs. In this episode, we're going to chat about Cade's plan to move out soon. So what does preparing look like, the logistics, his hopes, his dreams, and our feelings about it. We're going to chat about all of it today. So I'm Marci, the mom.
And I'm Cayd. I'm the kid, of course. We've talked in the past episode about me living at home and kind of what we've done to make that work as a family, how it's been, the pros, the cons, what we've gone to work through, all of that stuff. But it is looking like it's almost time for me to move out and move on to the next chapter of my life, which will obviously be living away from home. So we kind of just want to talk about what that looks like, how we're getting there, expectations from it, and all that good stuff.
So whether your kid moves out at 18 or not until a little bit later, it can be exciting for them and hard for you as a parent. We've known it was coming with Cade for a while now. We're still kind of working out timing and details for him, but that is actually the perfect time to tell you our story as it's unfolding. So it is a definite transition for families when they have a child that moves out. So Cade is my youngest. I've been through this twice before, but it is different with each child, how they do it, where they go, what it feels like, how that all unfolds. So we hope that because you showed up here today, you're going to gain some insight, maybe a few helpful hints, a perspective shift around gaining your own independence if you are the young adult, or having to walk past that empty bedroom if you are the parent. So we are not experts, but we can authentically share what we're learning in hopes of making the path a little bit easier for those of you who are listening. Cayd, why don't you tell us how you decided it's a good time to kind of branch out onto your own, get your own space, and what that dream looks like for you?
For sure. Kind of like I talked about in the last episode, I think that everyone kind of just has a point where they are ready to be on their own. And whether that's you're ready to move out of your parents' house, or you're ready to stop having a roommate, or you're ready to move out of your college house, whatever it may be, I think that everyone kind of reaches that point. And I think I'm at that point where I'm just ready to move out, ready to experience something new, be in a new city, and all that good stuff. I've been preparing for this for years, pretty much. I've been saving money ever since I got my first job when I was 16 years old working at a restaurant. I have, over the past couple years, worked to kind of buy some things that I'll eventually need once I move out. So things like a set of pots, a set of plates, bathroom stuff, just things like that that can kind of be helpful when you move out. It's already a big adjustment to move out. You know, you've got to pay a security deposit on an apartment and first month's rent. You have to pay for the moving truck and all that stuff. So something I've done to kind of over the course of the past couple years make that transition a little bit easier is spend a little time here and there and buy a set of pots or buy a set of bath towels and things like that, just like I said, to make it overall easier and help through the process a little bit. The reason I really want to move out is I've lived in Kansas most of my life. I was born in Minnesota. We moved here when I was 7, I want to
First
say,
grade.
mom. First
Same.
grade, yeah.
Hmm.
So, and I've always been someone that's wanted to move out. I want to move to a big city. I want to just experience that, whether it's living actually in the city or in the suburbs. I just think that there's so much out there to explore and so much to see, so much to experiment with, that I just want to, go out and see it all. So that's really been a goal, something I've been working towards, which was also part of the reason why I stayed at home during college. So that way I could save more money and I could be in a better position to follow those dreams as I got older. When making that decision of wanting to live to a big city, like I said, that has always kind of been the goal. I don't know why, but that's always been something I've wanted to do, wanted to live in a big city, just more opportunities, more things to experience, all that good stuff. But obviously, there's a lot of big cities in the United States, different areas, different environments, different cultures, everything like that. So that's been something that's been really interesting through this whole process, is figuring out what cities I do and don't want to live in, and what might be a good fit, what isn't a good fit. One thing I've really come to realize is nowhere is going to be perfect. Nowhere has 100% of the things you want or has everything I'm looking for. So it's kind of just figuring out, okay, these are the cons of this city. Am I willing to put up with that? And these are the pros, and kind of weighing those out. So that's been a really fun experience of figuring out where I want to live. And, we're in the phase, like my mom said, of we're kind of going through that moving process. I'm at the point now where I'm starting to really lock in on what cities I would like to live in, how we're planning on moving me there, what time frame I'm planning on moving there. It's currently April of 2024. My plan is to move sometime this summer, maybe into the fall. just depending on a couple different things of what that looks like as far as, you know, signing a lease to an apartment and all that sort of good stuff. So yes, just looking forward to moving and getting there with all of that.
So as you can tell, Cayd is a planner. He always has been. We used to have what we called Panera and planner dates.
Mhm,
At the first of the year, we would go buy us each a new planner and we would go to Panera and he would get his favorite, which was the mac and cheese. And we would sit and we would get our planners organized, put birthdays and everything on for the upcoming year. So he has been doing that since he was old enough to write. So he's definitely a planner and also very blessed to have a remote job. So Cayd can live anywhere in the United States and still keep his job. So that makes the transition of moving much easier for him. So
mhm.
definitely a well thought out plan. What parts are you most excited about?
I'm really just excited for the new adventure, being able to try new restaurants, simple things like drive down new streets and see new things, meet new people. I think it's just, I'm in my 20s now. I'm done with my undergraduate degree. Like you said, with my job, I can move anywhere in the United States. So I think I'm just really excited for the new opportunities, the new experiences, and just to kind of really learn, what this new phase of my life looks like and see how that unfolds. I think something that I've really been excited about is the fact that there is no right or wrong way to do it. There isn't a right or wrong city or a right or wrong people to meet. And so just kind of experiencing that, living through it, and just seeing where it takes me for sure.
Yeah, I love that you're just embracing that newness of a new experience. To move to a city where you don't know anyone or know very few people is something that maybe because we moved when you were so young and you learned how
Hmm.
to do that, right? That's a valuable life skill to have. That being said, what are you nervous about?
Hmm. I mean, kind of like you touched on, a lot of the cities I'm planning on moving to, I either don't know anyone there, or I maybe have one or two friends from high school, or someone that I've met through that lives there. But I'm not really looking at moving anywhere that I already have family at, or I have friends at, or anything like that. So that part does make me a little bit nervous, but I don't even necessarily know if it makes me nervous or if it's more just being excited about it. Obviously, then that does come with having to make new friends and having to have push yourself kind of maybe out of your comfort zone and experience that. So I am a little bit nervous about that. I am obviously a little bit nervous about living away from home. I haven't lived more than 15 minutes away from my mom, or at least I was in the same house. So that is, again, not necessarily nervous, just more, I guess, maybe excited to see how that pans out. And I think that, obviously there's probably going to be struggles along the way, but I know that we can get through it all for sure. But just excited to see what that looks like as it plays out, and figuring out that adjustment and kind of figuring out our new rhythm of what our relationship looks like with me not living at home, and with my friends that still live in Wichita. What does that look like with us not, being able to hang out every week or things like that. So I think that just a little nervous about the overall adjustment of everything, but nothing that's too scary for sure.
Yeah,
And
so
I know.
I actually heard Glennon Doyle say once that scared and excited are actually the same emotion. It's just the
Mhm,
mindset at which you look at it with. And so you kind of just described that really well.
exactly. I think that's a good mindset to have. I think, if you're sitting in it scared of, oh, I'm not gonna make any new friends where I live, then you might not. Or, oh, I'm gonna miss my mom so much, blah, 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 then you're probably gonna miss her. So I think you kind of just almost have to accept it for what it is, and then make the best out of it for sure. But I mean, I've talked about how I feel about it. How do you feel about it, mom? I am, like you said earlier, I am your last kid to move out,
Great.
and what that looks like for you.
So that's why the box of Kleenex is sitting right here in front of me. If I get too teary, we'll just like reshoot this part of it. But I actually feel really good about it. So I am not scared for you. I'm very excited for you. You are very capable. Like I said, you've planned things out very well. So I'm gonna get teary. So yes, it is my last one leaving. And in the spirit of being authentic, as long as I don't turn into the big ugly cry, I will keep talking here. But Cayd and I went through a lot together. We were the only two living at home through my divorce from his dad, through COVID, for good parts of COVID. We were the only two living at home. So we actually have a very close relationship. We've been working both from home together for years now. So it's going to be very different for me around here. For you, I have no fears. I think you're going to have a great time. You've said you're looking at places that are drivable, so that makes me happy. Cade's also taking our two beagles with him, so I will have the the added piece of missing them, but I know he needs them and they need him. And so that's why I have my new baby Echo, which I talked about last podcast. It'll just be me and the Cavapoo here today. So, but I'm just really excited for you to have this experience. And I'm also excited for my husband and I. We've only been married about 2 years, but to be able to like get used to that new empty nest lifestyle. Like my kids are never out of my head, but they're out of my daily orbit is the phrase that I use when they don't actually live here in the house. So you no longer know what they're doing. You no longer are like, ooh, I haven't seen, he's maybe not eating enough or he's not sleeping enough or things like that that are worries when your kid lives at home, even if you don't say anything because you're letting them adult. Like when they don't live with you, you don't know any of those things. You don't know the people they're hanging out with a lot of times as they're making friends. You just want to know they're safe and that they're happy. That is essentially, it goes from being all of the details of just living in a household with someone to not knowing those things about your child. So we'll talk a little bit here in a minute about how we plan to stay close and connected. But yeah, so that's how I'm feeling about it. Super excited for you. I will be sad. I will cry the whole way home. My husband actually had to help me move Cade's big brother Sawyer all the way to Washington State, and he had been living away but only 4 hours away, but moving him 25 hours away was a completely different story. So Tim kind of had to peel me away from Sawyer and then sit in the car with me and drive all the way back from Washington State to Wichita. And that was shortly after we started dating. So that's how we knew he was a keeper, that he survived that. But so there will be tears definitely when I have to leave you in a new city, but it'll be tears of happiness. So
For sure.
an
What
adjustment
do you
has to be made on my side. So
Yeah, for sure. I think you kind of touched on it, but what do you think maybe is going to be the hardest part of the transition?
again, I think just not having you in my daily orbit. Well, and Carmi and Azul too.
Hmm.
The Beagles, they've been around for 8 and 10 years. So in some ways, it will be very quiet, which with Azul, who has anxiety and is a barker, the quiet won't necessarily be a bad thing, but he is also very affectionate. And so, that I think will be hard. I'm planning on actually taking over Cade's bedroom as the new headquarters for me and making this into more of a guest room. So that'll be kind of fun to get to
Hmm.
set that up and but I know that when I'm working in there, I'll still feel your energy and it will still be your room.
Hmm.
But at
Oh,
least it won't be empty.
exactly, exactly. It'll give you more room to spread out.
Yeah. I know for a
What do you
lot of parents, that's really hard when their child is no longer there at home. It's like they're gone, but then when you have to walk past their bedroom and you see their bed there made and they've taken some of their stuff, right? But there's still a
Mhm.
lot of things there. I know that's really hard for a lot of parents.
For
So
sure. What do you think will probably be the best part, or maybe the part you'll enjoy the most?
I think the as quiet as it will be, I think will also be good. When
Hmm.
you've been a parent for a long time, so Cade's older brother's almost 26. So if you count the time that I was pregnant with him, that's like almost 27 years where my whole world every day has revolved around parenting someone. And so I think that will be, even though I'll still be your parent, it's in a different capacity. And
Hmm.
when you have littles, when you have toddlers, when you have preschoolers, it's a very physical type of parenting. When they get older and they're in middle school and high school, it's a very emotional part of parenting. And then it's that you want them to fly and be successful, right? But it's like the peeling off a band-aid very slowly when they're like
Hmm.
developing their adult lives, right? And the finished product is what you've always worked towards, but that doesn't make it any easier to actually let them
Hmm.
go. So, but I think being able to actually like relax into that, and I know it's already happened for me with your brother and sister because they
Hmm.
are happy and well adjusted and have lives where they're choosing to live. Um, so once I kind of work through that initial you being gone, then it's kind of like, oh my goodness, there's now less on my radar screen. We talked in the previous episode about how I'm not controlling over your life at all. It's just still that everyday in and out.
Yeah.
Those pieces of information will no longer be on my brain, on my heart. I won't have to pay
Hmm.
attention to them. So I'm looking forward to kind of that next season of my life where it truly goes back to I can't even remember what that was like being an
Hmm.
adult with nobody to actually physically have to care for. Like,
Yeah, I think we had a conversation about that a couple weeks or a couple months ago about how your life for the past, like you said, 27 years has
Yeah,
always been about your kids or what, even if it's not all about them, it's what's this person doing or what's this
yeah,
person doing or blah, blah, blah. So you haven't, it's been a while that
yeah,
you haven't ever had
yeah.
to worry about that.
Well, and there's just no logistics anymore with like even with you
Yeah.
living here, like I know we, use that word as it pertains to the move, but also at home, like we talked, extra people using the laundry machine, extra people using the laundry machine, where that came from, I don't know. But using the dishwasher, like just kind of the dance that you have to do, like making sure when
Hmm.
I come out of the garage that I pull around your car and don't back into it. Like things like that
Yeah,
will be different and will take some getting used to too. So I think that will be the best part of the transition for me. What do you think the best part's gonna be?
for sure. I think the best part is just going to be kind of like I mentioned earlier, just being able to see what this new chapter of my life looks like and just kind of having an open mind about that and seeing where it goes, seeing what friends I'm going to make, seeing what activities I'm going to do, seeing where I'm going to live, seeing, just I think the newness of it all is really going to be
Mhm.
the best part. And just being able, especially since I didn't necessarily have the traditional college experience, I didn't go on campus. I was working full time the whole time I was in college. So I think I never got that like traditional time to like break away and kind of find your new life as an adult. I think going to college for a lot of kids is where they make that transition from, okay, this is who I was as a teenager and this is who I am as an adult. And then I think once a lot of kids graduate, they get that another round of, okay, this is who I am after I've graduated. Or even if they didn't go to college, the first time they move out or their first, professional job or things like that. That's always a big transition. And especially with COVID happening my senior year of high school, I think that it all kind of like bled together. I think just the
Yeah.
past 6 or 8 years have just kind of been one big block of my life. I don't think I necessarily got any like new transition. So I'm really excited for that, just the newness of it all and just like looking forward to seeing how it all plays out.
Yeah. So tell me, how do you plan to kind of explore and make friends in a new city? Like, what's
For
your
sure.
strategy for that?
That's one thing I've thought about a lot, especially now. A lot of my friends I've either met through school or through my jobs or things like that. So, we've had this conversation before. When you're in high school, when you're in middle school, when you're working, your first job, a lot of those are easy ways to make friends. You already are in school with those people for 6, 7 hours a day going to class. You're already working for 6, 8 hour shifts with those people. So it's almost kind of like you have a built-in friendship base right there. Especially with me not being in school anymore and not working a traditional job in office. I don't have coworkers just say, "Oh, you want to go grab a drink after work or whatever." So I think that I've known that I definitely will have to be more intentional about exploring and making new friends because I will be working at home. I'm not going to school. I don't have anything like that where I'm forced to meet new people. So kind of my strategy is to kind of find things going on in the city that are based around things that I like to do and meet people through that. I'm a big runner. A lot of cities have run clubs. So kind of going to those, meeting people through that. Social media is a great way to meet people. It's quick to find people that are have similar interests in you, live in the same city, things like that. And like I said, just finding people that you have things in common with, I think is really important. And I think I've always been really good at making friends. I've kind of comes easy to me, meeting friends at the gym, meeting friends, when you go the coffee shop you always go to every week or things like that. I think that I will just have to be more intentional about it. But yeah, that's kind of the plan for that.
That's
And
That's
go
great.
ahead.
It sounds like, you've kind of got your bases covered, and it will be something intentional for you to get out and do, because there won't be the fallback rate of I'm going to go in and spend time with my sister and her boyfriend, or hey mom, do you
Exactly.
want to dinner, or whatever that might be. That fallback won't be there. And so, although we're only a phone call or a FaceTime away, right? It's definitely
Uh-huh.
something we'll have to do. I know one of the things that dawned on me as you were saying that I forgot to talk about, you're my last one leaving home,
Mhm.
and when you ask me kind of what I'm looking forward to, or what do I think the best parts will be, one of the things that I think is the best part for me about each of your siblings living at home. So with Sawyer living in Washington, like getting to go see him in his city, in his element, having him show me, and I know you and your sister have both gone out there to see him too,
Mhm.
to show us kind of like what his new life looks like, his favorite places to hang out. We go on hikes, we go to the beach, we do all kinds of fun things. So I'm really looking forward to exploring whatever city it is that you move to, and for you
Mhm.
to get the chance to kind of show me your new life and the places you hang out. And it helps as a parent to be able to do that, because then you can picture your child. Adult, right? I keep saying child, but my man child, I jokingly call my kids or my boys. But and like with your sister, even though she's only 30 minutes away, it still is really fun for us to get. She lives in an apartment that has a pool, and so we already have a pool day planned for this summer.
Mhm.
To get to do some of those things where you're just hanging out and just enjoying the spaces that they have. She redecorates her apartment, and I get to go see something cute that she got at Hobby Lobby and comment on it. Like those are really fun things to do as a parent.
For
So
sure. I
yeah.
mean, like you kind of mentioned with already having experience moving both of them out, do you have like what would you say has either helped you or what have you learned with each of them moving out? Just, maybe even any advice you could give to other parents or things like that.
Right. One of the hardest parts is not being that parent that calls your kid every day. So, for especially single parents, sometimes like that adult child is their person that they've told a lot of things to and that they kind of use to regulate their nervous system or run things through or whatever. But when your child moves to a new city and they're trying to create a new life, that's not their job to help you through your feelings about them being gone. Like it's okay to be honest with them about it, but don't put that load onto your child as they're
Mhm.
develop a new life. So the biggest piece of advice that I can give to someone facing this is take your cues from your kid. So if you have a child who needs to call you or text you every day, and that's the level of communication they want to keep, allow that to happen. If they're wanting to just touch base once a week, allow that to happen. The phone calls go both ways. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call them. Just don't do it every day if that's not the pattern that they're setting.
Mhm.
You can have a conversation with your kid about that, but keep in mind they're going to get busy. They're going to have things that are going on in their lives that again aren't on your radar screen. You don't know what their schedule looks like. And so if you call and then you call again and you call again and they haven't called you back, it might just because they're busy, not because they don't love you, not because they don't need you anymore. So that's really helpful to kind of let them guide the cadence of that reaching out.
Mhm.
Their bedroom does not need to stay exactly as they left it. Like there are a lot of parents who hang on to bedrooms, hang on to houses, they have chosen to move out. Now it's a little different with a college kid, right? Because they might be home more often on weekends and school
Mhm.
breaks in the summer, and they want their bedroom to come back to. But when my kids have had their own apartment, their bedroom officially is mine to do with whatever I want. Now, sometimes that means there's still a few things they've left behind. I typically, again, if my kids have their own apartments, they pretty much take most of their stuff with them. Cayd has a plethora of plants, and so I might have to babysit some plants for a while if
Mhm.
he's somewhere drivable, if we can't get them all in the first move. So sometimes there's things that they leave behind. I don't think that I'm the storage person for their stuff.
Mhm.
Like, I remember when I was young, that my grandma still had boxes of stuff that belonged to my mom, and my mom already had kids. And I remember thinking at that time, I'm not going to store my kids' stuff. Like when they move out, it all goes with them, because if they don't
Mhm.
need it enough to have it in their own apartment, they can have it. So just don't feel like you have to store that stuff, because while that stuff holds memories, right? It's not your child. And so,
Mhm.
don't hang on to that if you don't have the space, if you don't feel the need. You don't have to keep the room the same. You can repurpose it into a guest room or an office or a lovely place to sit and read, whatever it is you're wanting to do. Like I said, I'm moving headquarters into Cade's room to open up some space in this guest room that's tight. So also make plans to go see your kid. They're going to come home to see you sometimes, hopefully, if you have a great relationship with them. If you don't, again, not too late to work on that, but hopefully they're going to come see you sometimes, but also plan to go see them, because I think that's really
Mhm.
important that that goes both ways. And then also understand that they're going to meet people. They potentially will have a significant other or other plans when it comes to holidays or things like that. So you need to understand that it may not always look the way it's always looked on your holidays. And I know that can be very upsetting to parents, when the first Christmas rolls around and one child out of 3 says, "Oh, I'm going to my partner's family for Christmas." So
Mhm.
be open to celebrating things on off days, be open to doing things in a new way. Cade may potentially be gone for, Mother's Day this year for the actual day of Mother's Day, and my daughter is gonna be out at my other son's house on a trip. So, like, this is the first Mother's Day where I may not have someone at home, and at first I was like, "Oh," but then I was like, "Oh, I really get to celebrate being a mother, and I don't have to worry about how we're all getting together or when we're all getting together. If Kate ends up being home, great, we're gonna go out to dinner, we're gonna have a great time, but if
Mhm.
he's not, I have plan B of how I'm going to celebrate being a mother, and it might involve a winery and a glass of wine and pedicure and those kinds of things, some self-care, but be open to realizing that they are an adult and it is not their job to meet your expectations that probably aren't appropriate anymore. So
For
again,
sure.
adults and have their own lives. So, and
And
to
I
the kids, the one piece of adult I'd give to the kid, the one piece of advice I'd give to the kids is just enjoy every second of it. Like never in your
Mhm.
life will you have the same level of freedom and be so young.
Yeah.
That freedom hits a little differently when you're older. And you're not moving around as fast and aren't, as excited to go out and try new things. So just enjoy every minute of it.
Exactly, and I think that's something that's really pushed me to move is, this is the time in my life where I don't have kids, I don't own a house, I don't have anything holding me down. I with my job, I can move wherever I would like. So that's been something that's really been pushing me to move, even if I move somewhere for a year or 2 and then I decide, "Okay, it's not the right city for me," and I move on, or I move and then I meet someone, or I move and then, I end up needing to move back home for some reason or whatever. I think just like you kind of said, this is a time in my life and a lot of people who are my age. This is a time where, there are some people who have kids, but we don't have kids. We don't have, a big mortgage. We don't have, you know, we have responsibilities, but we don't have any major responsibilities that are holding us down like that. So, whether you do want kids or don't want kids or do want married or don't want to get married or whatever that situation looks like, I think just kind of capitalizing on that moment has been big for me and knowing that whatever my future looks like, it's going to look different than it does now. And another thing that you kind of commented on too, between the whole holiday situation and kind of changing up rooms and things like that, I think that kind of just the big picture of that for both parents and kids that I would say is just be open to the fact that pretty much everything is going to look different. Your communication is going to look different. Like you said, the holidays you spend are going to be different. As a kid, when you come home, the house is going to look different. Like, for example, right now, if you were to go buy a dining room table, I'm probably going to hear about it, right then as it's happening. But if I moved out and I come home 2 months later, I'm going to be like, oh, this dining room table is new. And not that it's a big thing, but you just, there's a different dynamic in your relationship, in your communication, and what's going on. So I think that it's really just important to look at that with an open mind and look at that with, oh, like this is an exciting new experience for us. This is a new relationship. This is a new dynamic that we have. Helps a lot with the transition rather than looking at it with like a negative mindset of, oh, well, now when I come home, like my room isn't going to be decorated the same. Or when I come home, blah, blah, whatever. Or, on your end, it's like, okay, we go from talking every day. And obviously, we don't know what our relationship is going to look like once I move out. We obviously are very close and do keep in touch and want to keep it that way. But, if we go from talking every day and there's one day where either you're busy or I'm busy and we don't talk, or you call me while I'm on a work meeting and I don't answer or return your call till the next day or whatever the situation may look like. I think it really is just the mindset of, okay, this is an exciting new time for us and embracing what that looks like rather than, being scared of it or trying to prevent it or anything like that.
For sure. And just to be clear, when Cade says, if I ever need to move back home, he means to this area, not necessarily to my house.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
my kids all know that should there be an emergency, whether that be financial with a job loss or a health concern or something, that obviously, even if I'm down to a 2-bedroom apartment or they had to sleep on the couch, like we would make that happen. No member of our family would ever be homeless in those circumstances. So he's just saying if he needed to move back to the area. Again,
Yeah,
I'm not one of those parents. I'll share it again in case you didn't hear the last episode, but I don't believe in letting your kids live in your basement till they're 40. I don't feel like
hmm,
that gives them responsibility for their own power. And I just don't feel like it's healthy. So again,
for
I'm
sure.
not an expert, but that's the way we've chosen to do things in our
Yes.
family, but I would never have Cayd sleep on the street if all of a sudden with a medical
And I
issue or
And I think that that has been great. Like, that's also one of the reasons why I've stayed at home for a little bit longer is because I want to make sure that I'm fully prepared because don't want to have to move back in and nor would you let me move back in until I'm 40 or whatever. Like you said, obviously if situations happened, but just speaking in general. But yeah, like I said, with our communication, obviously we have a close relationship. We want to keep in touch. We want to maintain our relationship. We've gone through a lot together, like you said. So I think that that's definitely something that I have noted that I want to prioritize. And we don't know what our communication look like. We haven't really found that rhythm of okay, do we call every night on Tuesday or do we, what that looks like or how often are we texting or FaceTiming or blah blah blah. But I think that just being intentional about it of, you know, obviously being in a new city, I'm going to be busy, kind of like we talked about, meeting new friends, trying new places, experiencing new things. So I think just intentionally saying, okay, like even though I am busy, still calling mom to keep her updated. And I think it's easy now because I don't necessarily have to intentionally keep you updated on my life because you just learn about it as it's happening because I'm living at home. If I, let's just say, I'm trying to think. If I buy some new clothes, I'm just going to walk in the house with the clothes. You're going to see them. You're going to ask what I got, blah, blah, blah. It just kind of happens more naturally. Versus if I'm living away, you're not going to know that I get new clothes or I bought a new couch or I whatever. So I think intentionally saying, okay, let me call mom and update her on what I'm doing and blah, blah, blah. And not even from like you said, like we said earlier, from a controlling point, but just intentionally putting in the work to maintain that relationship.
yeah, because I mean, we want to know that you're happy and thriving. And like, I would be excited for you to have a new couch and like, we'd be on FaceTime and I'd be like, turn it around, show me, I want to see.
Uh
Can't wait
huh.
to sit on it. So those kinds of things, when there's big moments, whether that be happy moments or sad moments, like I've always said to my kids, I want to be one of the first people you call, whether it's good or
hmm
bad. Like, and we've worked through that so that they know that even if it's something bad, that I am
hmm
a person that they can 100% trust with that. So I think whether it's phone calls, whether it's texts, I don't think there's a day that goes by that somebody doesn't comment in our family group chat or group
hmm
text. So, like we have a
Yeah.
text group that is my husband and I, the three kids, and then Kinsey's boyfriend. And so like whether it's just a random picture of any of the assorted dogs that we have, there's five between all of us, or whether that's hey, I got a raise today at work, or whether that's, something hard that's happened and they just want someone to know about it. That's been really, really, I think, a brilliant thing. We actually, when we got married, Cayd created a new last name for our group since we actually are a family now that has two different last names. And so the text group is called the Urtons, and that came from him calling my husband Tim Timmerton. And then the dogs became Zulerton, and Momerton is me, and he's Cayd, and it just went on and on. And so that's been really fun to have that identity. And so I fully expect that, it may not be calls as often or FaceTimes as often, but
hmm
there's a lot of texting that we do in our family, like tons of, which I consider signs of life. Like if I don't hear from one of my kids for 3, 4 days, or they're absent from
hmm
texting or whatever, as a mom, I want a sign of life. Like that can just be a thumbs up on a
Yep.
comment. Like I just need to know that you're alive and
hmm
that
Exactly.
you're okay.
Well, and
Um,
one thing I think about is even with me living at home, I think we still text, like me and you
yeah,
individually still text every day on top
yeah,
of seeing each other every day
yeah,
and working 10 feet away from each other.
yeah.
So I think that that is kind of reinforcement that it might not be as big of a change as I'm picturing. Um, because we already kind of do it. We already call all the time. We already text all the time. Like you said, we have our family group chat. I think like with social media, like well post on my Snapchat story and you'll slide up and say something about it. So I think that especially with today's technology and social media and FaceTime, texting, calling, all of that, like you said, it's not even necessarily about oh, I need to have a phone call conversation and we need to talk and give an update on everything that's happened. But I think just simple things like even me posting on my social media stories or you posting on yours or just any engagement like that, I think all adds up to just keeping that communication going.
That's a really good point. And I think, it made me think of when I was in college, like still had to pay for long distance phone calls. And so once a week on Sundays in the evening, I would call my parents from my dorm room phone And then they would call me right back because it was super expensive to call from the dorm, but they had long distance included in their phone plan because they paid extra, I believe.
Mhm.
But like to go from that once a week, they didn't know the other 6 days of the week what I was up to. No, I could call them if I needed them or something bad
Yeah.
happened, but it was just routine that we had the one call a week. So I'm very grateful for that technology that's out there. And just a note to kids, like for grandparents, it's been fun to watch my parents learn to text and
Mhm.
learn to use Facebook and learn to use Instagram because they get to see their grandkids and what they're up to and what they're doing. And the kids text their grandparents
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
back and forth, not even just phone calls. So they're texting with them too. So I love that. So it's not even just your parents that want to hear from you, but
Mhm.
Cade won't know about the conversation grandma and I had because he won't be at home. So sometimes if it's really important, I'll text my kids, "Hey, just got off the phone with grandma. Here's what's going on." But other
Mhm.
times if it's just random stuff, like I leave it to them to maintain their
Yeah.
relationship with grandparents one-on-one. So
Mhm. For sure.
just another good hint. So anything else you think, Cade, might help the kids or the parents out there that are navigating this journey that we haven't already talked about?
One thing that we haven't talked about, at least on this episode, I think is we talked about it a lot last time, but just maintaining communication of if either the parent or the kid is feeling, as a parent, if you're feeling like I'm not calling you enough. I know you kind of commented on that earlier, but like as a parent, if you still want to be involved, I think it's as important as it is to give your kid that freedom. I think it's also important to let them know if you're feeling a certain way. Not that, your kid necessarily is going to go from calling you once a week to every day, but, it could go months of, let's say I'm only calling you once a week and you want me to call you more. It could go for months and let's say, then you're upset about it and you feel like we're losing our relationship, blah, blah, blah. And I this whole time feel like we're fine. And so I think just expressing that communication of, hey, I wish you would call me more, or as a kid saying, "Hey, mom, like, I'm doing good. I'm just really busy. I can't call you, this week, or I can't call you as much, or whatever." I think maintaining that communication of just, making sure that everyone is kind of on the same page and that nothing is left unsaid.
Yeah, very good. The two things that come to mind for me that we haven't mentioned yet. One is for parents to remember that the dynamic changes, and Kate can probably attest to this, but when one child leaves the mix, the dynamic of the family changes. So the oldest one moves out, the relationship between you and your kids might change. The relationship between the kids remaining at home might change. The
Hmm.
relationship between them and their sibling might change. So it's not just your relationship with your child, your adult child, that changes when they move out. It's the whole dynamic of the family.
Hmm.
And so just to be conscious of that, be prepared for that, know that you might have to help your littles through some hard feelings um, that they're having and don't know how to explain because they're missing their big sib, or they might be really glad they're gone and they might think they have to take over. They
Hmm.
might need their room. So just be prepared for that dynamic
Yeah.
shift that's going to
And
happen.
And that's something that Kinsey Sawyer and I have all talked about. Growing up, Sawyer and Kinsey were always very close. I think kind of as the two older siblings, obviously they were, before I was born, they had each other. And then while I was a baby, they were playing together. And so I think throughout our young childhood, they always had a very closer bond. And especially with there being three of us, I think that shows a lot more than if there were maybe only two kids or if there were four kids or things like that. And then once Sawyer went to college, we always talk about how me and Kinsey got very close because Sawyer had kind of he left the house and me and Kinsey were there together. Me and Kinsey were the ones going to school together every day and driving home every day. And, we were the ones at home before you and my dad got home from work and things like that. And then once Kinsey went to college, then Sawyer and Kinsey had the college experience to kind of bond over. And then I was, so I think, and then right now Sawyer lives so far away and me and Kinsey are both within 30 minutes of each other, and all three of us are very close and have always been close throughout all of those years, but it's just the dynamic changes and what you're going through changes. So I think like you said, that's just something to note, that it's not only the child and the one child and the parent. And there might be things that you'll lean on Kinsey for more now that she's the one closest to home once I move. So I think that was a good point that you brought up, that it just changes for the whole family.
And the other piece for the parent themselves is that, yes, if this is your youngest, they're creating their new identity in their new space, whether that's in the same town as you or not. But you also, as an empty nester, get to create your own identity. So if you have lost yourself, to the project of parenting, which can go on for years and years, you get to rediscover who you are, what you like, what you want to do with your time. I think it's really important if you really feel lost to seek help. I happen to be a life coach, shameless plug, go to marcyhawkinson.com and we can talk through this transition because this is a huge transition that I talk to parents about quite often. So if you're needing help, check it out there. But this can be a tough one for some parents and adults. But to me, it feels like a win. When you have a child who's confident and feels capable of moving out on their own, establishing their own household, creating their own life, that to me is a big win. It's bittersweet, but it is a win. I've done it before, survived this one, but it's a new season of life. And that can come with a plethora of emotions, but it is an and both situation. I can feel sad and excited. I can feel lonely and be in wonderment about watching my kid fly. Like it's an and both
Mhm.
situation. You can feel both ways, and that's okay. All feelings are valid. So if you find yourself really feeling down and in those negative vibe emotions, again, there's all kinds of help out there, whether it's life coaches, therapists, medication, exercise, whatever it is for you that is the magic. But just don't sit and ruminate for longer than you have to. Don't be going into the room every night, shutting the door and crying all evening. Get some help. So for me, that's what it feels like is a win. How about for you, Cayd?
For sure. I mean, like you said, it's really exciting, but also it's a scary and intense time for both young adults and parents alike. And kind of like I commented about it earlier, I just have a really positive mindset about it and a really open mindset about it. And I think that that's important for both a young adult and a parent and just everyone around them. Just being open to new experiences, open to new friendships, opening to, maybe being a little bit outside of your comfort zone or trying new things. And also, I think being open to, I'm not sure this is the best word, but being open to failure, being open that every friendship you try to start isn't going to work out, or every new activity you try isn't going to work out. Or maybe you move to a new city and you decide it's not for you, and then you move to a different city, or kind of like I said, moving back home to Wichita or things like that. I think that it's important to just have an open mindset about it and knowing that there isn't a right or a wrong choice. And it's just all about what path you're wanting to go on. But I think I've, like I said earlier, done a lot to prepare for this. And I'm just ready to experience it, ready to kind of let all of my work pay off and see how it happens. Like I said, I've been very intentional about buying things for when I move out. I've been intentional about saving money. So I know I've put in the work to get here. So I'm really just ready to see how that plans out and see what happens.
And I love that you brought up failure, Cayd, because failure is not a bad thing. It's really just additional data so that you can pivot and try something else. So I think in society, we have such a negative concept about failure. And really, if you're not taking risks and willing to fail, right, you're never going to do anything outside your comfort zone. So I like
Mhm.
that you brought that up. I have zero worries about you, Cayd, being able to fly and being able to handle if something doesn't go right, being able to make that pivot and figure out what your next right move is, right? That's all any of us
Mhm.
do. So your wings are strong. You're ready to fly, even if it's far away from your mama. Um, So I hope this has been helpful to you guys. You can find our podcast anywhere podcasts are available. If you want to communicate with Kate or I, the best way is to DM us on socials, and we will include those in the show notes. You can also just search Marci Hawkinson, life coach on Facebook. Kate follows me, so we're there. You can DM us on any of the socials. You can send us an email at marcyhawkinson@gmail.com. Anything else, Kate?
Perfect. I think that's it. I think we kind of covered it all. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Raising Bigs. We've got our name down now, and we're just ready to see where this journey takes us. We'll be posting new episodes every Monday, so we'll be able to see you guys next Monday for the next episode of Raising Bigs.
And we'll keep you posted on how Cade's move out goes.
For sure.
Bye, everyone.